Ready.
Good morning, my name is Larry Stone, and I'm the president of the Audubon Beekeepers Association. This morning I want to talk a little bit about honeybees, one of the most wonderful insects that we have in this country. The honeybees aren't native to the United States. They were imported from Europe, and in the 1600s, they were brought here to Massachusetts and Virginia by the settlers. And what they brought was that German bee. It's a dark bee, and they had a little trouble with it because it was very successful to the European foul brood, and they had a hard time with them. That is a brood disease, and they didn't know how to handle it. There's about 20 distinguishable races of honeybees that are registered, and they're grouped in three different ones. It's the European, Oriental, and the African. We have about 4 species introduced to the United States. It's a German bee, the Carniolan, a Caucasian, and the Italian. The Italian being the last one introduced, and it's the most popular in the United States right now. The German bee was very defensive, and it was, like I said, it was successful to European foul brood, a brood disease, and it didn't do very good. Now the Carniolan bee, it's from Australian Alps and northern Yugoslavia. It was imported, and they're dark in color. They overwinter real good, and they're gentle, and they overwinter with small population. They don't have a large population during the winter, so that means they don't need a lot of food. The Corsican, it's a gentle dark bee also, but now it produces propolis. All bees produce propolis. It's an antibiotic. They coat things with it, seal it up where microorganisms can't get in the hive. But this type of bee is excessive. It super glues everything. You can't hardly get it apart. And but now people that sell propolis, that would be the kind of bee that they would want because they make a lot of it. But I personally don't want it because time you get done, you're sticky everywhere, not accounting the honey. And it's what that is. That's something they make from different saps of the tree, and every year it's different. They've been trying to duplicate that, but they can't do it. You know, scientists have. And the last one's an Italian bee. Now it's a yellowish bee that is very gentle, overwinters well, but it has a lot of bees that it overwinters, whereas the other ones are small amount. This has a large, so that means they eat a large amount of honey. So in weather like we're having now, you've got to check on them because they'll run out of supplies. What they'll do is they'll eat their honey, then when it turns cold like this morning, if it turned that way for about 4 days, they'll get into a cluster. Well, if that honey is that far away from them, they won't break that cluster because that queen is in there and some brood is in there right now. And they'll starve to death with honey in that hive. I've had it to happen to me, and that's a sad thing to go into. But what I've done over the years, I've learned I'll put sugar on top of them just in case of emergencies. If they don't have enough honey, if they're in that cluster and they can't get to it, I put it right above the cluster. And that way, it'll pull them through for a few days. $2 or $3 worth of sugar is a whole lot better than buying $150 to $200 worth of bees in the spring. I guarantee you that. Okay, about 1/3 of our food that we eat is associated with the honeybees. Whether it's them pollinating your fruit trees or your gardens or your hay for your cattle and all, the bees, 1/3 of our food is associated somehow with the bees in a roundabout way. And if we didn't have the bees, we wouldn't have a lot of products. I've seen videos or pictures of, a fruit department with bees and then one without bees, and it would be almost empty. I mean, you know, if I had them, it would be so expensive, you couldn't afford them. Honey is antibacterial, and it's a light laxative. During the wars and stuff, they put honey on wounds and stuff, and it's a disinfectant. Actually is, and on burns, they still do that today. They wrap that, honey is wrapped on some burns because of the medicinal purposes of the honey. It's unreal how important honey is to us. All the vitamins, the acids, antioxidants in it, and you know, it's very, very, very good food to eat. Diabetics, they can eat that, but they got to really monitor it, you know, the way I understand it. But it is sweeter than sugar, honey is. So, you know, whenever you're cooking, you don't use near as much. You don't have to, because it's just much sweeter. Also, the honey, as you can see right here, it's according to what kind of flowers that they go to, is be the color of it. Usually, the lighter is a little sweeter. The more darker it is, the more robust it is. I mean, you know, a lot of people like about this color. The light, some people don't like it. Some people don't like the dark. I have mostly this right here, because whenever I'm extracting my honey, I just put it all in one. But when you're extracted, now this is what we get our honey out of. This right here, this has already been slung out. You can hold this up and you can tell whether it's dark or light in there. Some people separate it, you know, but I don't do it. I just try to get a good mixture. And sometimes whenever, now this right here I did on purpose. This come from a canola field down around Slaughters, Kentucky. And I haven't had it tested, but it's a light, it has to be that, you know. To say what it is on a bottle, you have to have the honey tested. But that was there at about a 50-acre field, just solid yellow, so that's what that is. This one here, it's probably a combination of clover and stuff. It's more of amber. And this one here, see, it's sort of a reddish color. This would be like tulip poplar trees, blackberries and stuff like that. And this one here, as I said earlier, this is about 5 years old. I really don't know what it was when it started out. It might have been tulip poplar, but the older it gets, the darker it gets, honey does. And if you can see, it's not turned to sugar yet. It sits in my closet at a certain temperature year round. It's like I said, if I have the house, you know, heat, cooling, it varies 3 or 4 degrees. So, and it's 4 or 5 years old at least. Getting back to the honey part of it, and to what bees make. Bees make wax. Under their abdomen, there's 4 little segments there, and what they do is they make wax flakes, and then they chew it, and they make this design that right here on this comb. They'll chew those flakes up, which is real white. By the time they crawl over it, what makes the comb dark a lot of times is because they're crawling over it so much, you know. And they'll make that, whether you've got foundation in it or not, they will make it that way every time. I'm trying to get one out here that's okay. Whenever I put it in there, it's like this right here. This is wax that you can buy and put in there. And then whenever it just helps them get drawn out faster. And whenever they get it done, they'll draw it out, you know. They do it every time, and this one, they kind of put it together. I had it in there a little late, I guess, but anyway. But, you know, they make that wax, and the cappings from where we extract the honey, we have to cut the outer edge off, because it won't sling it out, those caps on it. And they will, we melt that down, and you make wax candles out of it. The reason wax candles are so important, if you burn them, they don't smoke. And if you notice, like a lot of the cathedrals and stuff, they have candles in them. They're all wax candles. Because if you use paraffin, it'll put out a black smoke. Eventually, it will smoke up stuff. Beeswax is also used years ago for like documents, sealing them. It's waterproof. You can waterproof something. You can take, melt your wax down, and say if you had a box like this and you put enough wax inside there, you can fill it full of water. If you had a bottom on it and everything, because it will seal it. And that's basically what bees do with the propolis, which that's what it is on top of that. They seal everything in that hive. It's because every time you go in that hive, break it loose, they have to seal it up. So you don't need to be nosing too much in that hive, no more than you have to. There's 3 kinds of honey, what they call extracted honey, and then they got comb honey. You know, you have to put that in there and let them draw it out, then you cut it out, or sometimes they have little frames that they'll fill it in. All you do is put a cap on it and stuff. They'll have it already pre-packaged pretty much. And then they have chunk honey. Chunk honey is probably honey that it's in a comb but maybe not capped, and you put it in a jar and you just pour honey over it, fill that in, and that's what they do. Now they also have what they call cream honey. This one here, it's got just a little bit, it's crystallizing in the bottom, but whenever it crystallizes so much, they will take it and they'll add like cinnamon to it or apple, and it makes like a butter, and it's really delicious. We have a lady in our club that she's done that this year. Takes machines to get it, but she can't keep it. She sells out of it, you know, and but you have to start with like crystallized honey. This, going back to this right here, this is canola from a field down around Slaughters. Some years, for some reason, this didn't do it, but you can extract it, and within 1 month, it'll be solid crystallized just about. And then other years, which this one didn't, it won't. And, you know, a lot of it's got to do with the weather, the content of the sugar in the flowers, and everything. Like I said, they put the cinnamon in them. There's all kinds of stuff out there that they do with honey that is really good. I don't do that. I pretty well just extract the honey and sell it locally, you know, stuff like that. And be sure that if you're buying honey, try to buy local, because you'll know those people, and that when you get honey, you'll get honey, not honey syrup. That's a big thing. And talking about the type of bees, also, this is a paper. It's from, I've got eversweetapiaries.com, and it's got all kinds of different bees. But now a lot of these bees have been developed from these 4 that I named, and this gives you the characteristics of them, how good a honey producer they are, how defensive they are, how they overwinter, how they're resistant to diseases, how good they store honey. And this is just general, it's not true, because I've got one hive of Italian bees right now. They're pretty mean. Most of them are gentle, but you know, I'll have to, in the spring, I'm going to requeen that one. I'll split it up and requeen it, and hopefully put a gentle Italian queen in there, because you know, there's no sense in fighting them when you don't have to. I'll go over what a beginner really needs to, if he's gonna start out beekeeping, really needs to know, if you're gonna, first thing to do, you need to already been to a beehive somewhere with some beekeeper. You need, if you're gonna get into bees, get a mentor, because that'll save you a lot of trouble and money also. My brother, he got me into it, Paul, so he helped me a lot. He told me a lot of things. Some things he did let me learn on my own about getting stung and stuff. And but what you need to do if you're planning on getting bees the next year or two, go to a beekeeper this summer. He'll usually have an extra suit. Put it on and see if you can stand fooling the bees. If they got a real gentle ones, they're fine. You know, I show people bees, but I don't take them to what few mean ones I have. I've got about 30 hives, so I probably got maybe 3 that's a little testy. You know, you don't want a beginner fooling with those, but all the rest you could. So you need to go and see if you really want to get into it, because it's pretty expensive anymore for people to do that. If you're going to get some kind of suit like this that will zip up, this is just a jacket and this hood is zipped on it. Make sure that you get one of these, because those bees, they will sting you. Most of my stings now, after I kind of learned how to handle them, is because I mash them. And you know, if you mash a bee, even though with these thick gloves on, leather gloves, they'll sting you through that. I wear the old cheap Harbor Freight plastic or those nitrile gloves, and the reason I do that is because my hands don't get near as sticky with those, and they can sting through that stuff too. I can handle them barehanded, but I just don't like to because your hands get so sticky. And those little bitty thin plastic gloves, you can feel a lot better with it. So that's what I do. And another thing that's just as important as this right here is a smoker. Don't ever go in a beehive without lighting it. Now whether you use it or not, you know, that's up to you. But always have it, because I have opened them, and by the time I get the lid off, they've been on me pretty bad. And sometimes that is because that is a gentle hive, but you had like raccoons or something the night before trying to get in there and aggravate them, and you just walked into it. That's what happened, you know. And so you always want to light that. You always want to suit up. Don't ever not do that, because they'll break you from it. And this bee brush, it's handy, but a lot of times it aggravates the bees too. So I use this very little, and if you'll notice, on all of this foundation that they fill out, it's like at a 5-degree angle up. So if you're going to brush these bees off of this, turn it like this. They brush off a whole lot easier if you brush them down like this, when it's upside down. If you got it this way, they don't brush off as easy. That's just part of it, you know. It's a lot of people think it's straight, but it's not. And always, when you're out in a hive, have some kind of little flashlight on you. I didn't bring it. That way you can look down in these cells and see eggs or whatever that queen is putting in there, and you can tell, you know, how good she's laying or what. A little flashlight saves you a lot of time. A lot of times I use the sun over my shoulder. That works too. But the flashlight, you can find the eggs much, much better. Whenever you, well, down to this here, this is a hive tool. And you need one of these. You don't have to, but they're so convenient. They're hardened steel, and the tip right here is real thin, and you can take that and prise these boxes open real easy. And I will show you, walk around front and show you on this hive exactly what it is. Okay, now this is a 2 deep beehive. For beginners, when you start out, you actually will have just, when you get your bees, it'll just be 1 deep, like this. And then whenever they fill it out, then you add this 2nd deep on it. And let them fill this out. Now what you got here so far, you got a bottom board and 2 deeps. This is the inner cover, and this is the outer cover, right here. So, you know, you got your inner cover and your outer cover. And the reason you use these two, because if you don't have them, if you just use the outside cover, it'd be so stuck so tight you can't get it off hardly. So you got 2 to go to. Also, we got several different things in here. Now here's a frame. This is old. I'm going to get rid of it. This is what the brood chambers look like. This is down in here. This is where the bees will raise all their young at. So this one is drawn out. It started out like this. This one here is old. You need to get rid of it after 4 or 5 years, because your comb is like a sponge. It will have chemicals build up in it, and you don't want that. So you have to change it out. Some people use plastic. I may have plastic in here. Let's see. Yes. Here's plastic foundation. They put wax on it, and the bees will draw that out in early spring and a good nectar flow. They will draw this out just like this one that I just had. They'll draw. It'll go from this to this, only it will be new. It won't be all black and old. And one of the reasons this gets dark, though, is whenever they raise bees in here, they make a cocoon when it's capped down in there. And they leave the outer shell. And as it gets older, the bees will be smaller because these cells will be smaller also. So, you know, eventually you're going to have to change it no matter what. So I like to change them every 4 or 5 years. Like I said, I'll change this out. It's old. You don't need to have it. All right, whenever you get your bees, they get this all filled out and everything, well then you can, this is where I take all my honey from. I don't take any from down, let me just do right here talk. I don't take any honey down here. I leave it for them to raise the bees with. This box that I just put on top, this is the one for your honey. And you put this in there, they'll draw it out, fill it out, cap it, and fill it full of honey. It's according to what kind of beehive you got. They may fill you 3 or 4 of these, and they may not even, the first year may not even fill 1. First year, if you get any honey, you're lucky. But the second year, they may fill, you know, you might can get 10 gallons off a hive or better. Or you may not get 2 or 3. It all depends on that queen. How good a queen you got, how many bees is in that hive. It's a numbers game. In the spring where you got that nectar flow, you need a large amount of bees in there to produce you any honey. If you've got a hive that's got, well, say if you got 3 hives, they've got 30,000 bees in there. And you got one hive that's got 50,000, the one with 50,000 will make more honey than the other 3 put together. And most time when they just got like